Hello friends, welcome to this channel. In this session, we are going to see lots of things related to AWS Route 53, like how we can create instances in different regions. Then we will see how to create and configure an application load balancer. After that, we will see what actually TTL is, and then finally we will see the difference between CNAME and Alias Record. So without any further ado, let's get started. How to set up our EC2 instance in AWS. So if you are new to this channel, then subscribe it and stay tuned for further AWS technical video. Okay, so now let's do a little bit of setup for EC2 and an application balancer before we go ahead and play again with Route 53. So what I'm going to do is go into the EC2 console and I'm going to create 3 EC2 instances around the world with different public IPs. So I'm going to launch an instance. Now we should know the process by now. So Amazon Linux 2 of T2 micro. I'll configure the instance detail, and in here for the user data I'm going to enter the user data from here. So what this is going to do is it is going to create a web server again, and it's going to say hello world from the host name, and it's also going to get the availability zone as part of the web page, because it is going to say hello world from US East 1A, which gives us some information around where the instance is located. So I'm going to paste this as text and then click on add storage, add tags, security groups, and I'm going to create a new security group with SSH and HTTP on port 80, and then simply launch my instance. And I can say that if this is fine, proceed without a key pair, which is fine. So we have done one of this in the Virginia region. Now let's go into another region. For example, let's go into US East to Ohio, and in there I'm going to do the same process. I'm going to launch an Amazon Linux 2 instance detail. I'm going to have the same user data, and then add storage, add tags, security group. I'll create a new one. I'll add the HTTP rule. Then I will launch my instance and it will say proceed without a key pair. Launch my instance. So as you can see, our instances are now launching. And then let's create one last instance. So for example, in the California region, so in US West 1, I'm going to create one last instance. So Amazon Linux 2, T2 micro again, and then I will have my user data, add storage, tags, security groups. I will add HTTP review and launch, and then I will proceed without a key pair. Okay, so we have 3 EC2 instance now. Now what I'm going to do is that I'm going to just get the public IP of each EC2 instance and write it down in my notes so I can just identify them. So in here I'm going to have this IP for US West 1. Then The other EC2 instance was in US East 2. So we are going to have a look for it. Here we go. The instance here. I'm going to get the public IPv4 and then paste it here. And this is my US East 1 instance. And then lastly, I had an instance US East 1. Yes, it is here. And I'm going to again copy the IP. So here we go. So I have 3 EC2 instances and I am going to do one last thing. I am going to actually create an application load balancer in this region as well, and you will see why later. Let's go ahead and create a load balancer. So it will create an application load balancer. I will call it demo ALB route 53 in 3 subnet, and then we will have a new tier group. So demo TG routes. I will reserve my targets. I will add these instances as my register targets, review and create. And then I will also get this DNS name right here in here just so we can check. Okay, so let's make sure that each of these instances is set up correctly. So if I take my instance from US West 1 and I go to this URL, I get a hello world from this domain name. So this is working. Then if I do the same for US East 2, I'll get a good answer. So that's perfect. Then if we do the one for US East 1, let's make sure it works. Yes, this is perfect. And then now my load balancer, I get the correct hello world. Okay, so we are good to go. My EC2 setup is complete. Okay, so now let's have a look at TTL. So a record TTL is a time to live. And let's take this example where a client is accessing our DNS Route 53 and a web server. So we do a DNS request for myapp.example.com and we get an answer from the DNS which is saying, hey, please, this is an A record. Here is the IP and there is a TTL, maybe a TTL of 300 seconds. So TTL is saying, hey clients, please cache this result for the duration of the TTL. So for 300 seconds, the client is going to cache the results. That means that if the client is requesting again or accessing the same host name, what's going to happen is that the client will not issue a query to the DNS system because it already knows the answer, because the answer has been cached and we are still within the cache period, so the cache TTL. The idea is behind this is that we don't want to query the DNS too often because we don't expect records to change a lot, and so therefore using the response it has, the client can access our web server and do HTTP requests and responses. So we have, two extreme cases. For example, if you set a high TTL of say 24 hours, then this is going to do a lot less traffic on Route 53 because less clients are doing requests because the results are cached for 24 hours. and possibly while the client will have outdated records. If somehow you want to change the record, you will need to wait for 24 hours to make sure that all your clients will have the new records in their cache. If you set a low TTL, for example like 60 seconds, at, at the opposite, then it's going to do a lot more traffic on your DNS. So a lot more dollar you are going to spend, because you get price for how many requests do reach Route 53. But the records will be outdated for less time, so it's quicker for you to do a record changes, and that's easier to change records overall. So it's up to you really to see what a good TTL or low TTL is. If you plan on changing a record, the idea is that sometime you will decrease the TTL for say 24 hours, and then when you know that all the clients have a new TTL that is low, then you change the record value which gets updated for everyone, and then you increase the TTL. This is a strategy. So the TTL is mandatory for every record except the alias record that we will see after the demo of TTL. So now let's have a look at how TTL, how time to live works in the console. So let's create a new record, and this one is going to be called demo, and the value of it is going to be one of the EC2 instance we know. So let's take one in US East 1. So I'm gonna take this EC2 instance and paste the value of it. And then for the TTL, we are going to set 2 minutes. So to do, I'm going to click twice on this minute button. So the TTL is now 120 seconds. So now let me create this record. And now my record has been created. So it is an A record pointing to a specific IP at demo.easyaws.rf.gd. Now I want to show you that the record is working. As you can see, my US East 1 instance. So that means that the record, this A record, is fully functioning. And I can also make sure of that. For example, if I am using Cloud Shell, so first I clear this and do a D command on this, then we get an answer, and there's a cool number that we are showing here. So the idea here is that is because I do a DNS query, then the record get cached for these seconds. And if I retype again this D command right here, as you can see, the number got down. So this was a cool demo of TTL, time to live, and I hope you all guys are clear with it. So guys, now let's have a look at the difference between CNAME and aliases. So when you have an AWS resource, for example a load balancer or a CloudFront, it will expose a hostname, and what you want is to maybe map that hostname to a domain you own. For example, you want to map this load balancer into myapp.mydomain.com. So we have two options. The first one is to use a CNAME record. So we have seen A records, but now let's look at the CNAME records. So CNAME allows you to point a host name to any other host name. For example, you can say app.mydomain.com is pointing to blah blah.anything.com, and this only works if you have a non-root domain name. So if you have something mydomain.com. It does not work for just mydomain.com, as we'll see in the hands-on. On the other hand, you have alias record, and these are specific to Route 53, but they allows you to point a host name to a specific AWS resource. So app.mydomain.com is pointing to blah blah.amazonaws.com, and these resources we'll see in a second where they are. But this alias record work for both root domains and non-root domains. So you can have mydomain.com pointing to as an alias to an alias resources, which is very good. So this is something that the exam may test you on, and we'll see this in the hands-on. So on top of it, alias is very good because they are free of charge, and they have a native health check capacity within them. Okay, so if we look at these alias records in detail, they are only mapped to resources in AWS. So you would say, okay, here is Route 53. I want to have example.com as an alias record of type A, and the value is the DNS name of the load balancer you have. Now, this is an extension to DNS functionalities. That's something that's across all DNS that exists out there. And in case the underlying ALB have IP changes, then automatically the alias record will recognize them. So it says, unlike CNAME, alias records can be used for the top nodes of the DNS namespace called the zone apex. So you can use a alias record for example.com. Now the alias record is always of type A or quadruple A, which is for resources, so either IPv4 or IPv6. When you have an alias record, you cannot set the TTL. It is set automatically by Route 53. So what are the targets for alias records? Well, it will be elastic load balancer, it could be CloudFront distribution, and some of this you will have seen in this course. Some of this you will not have seen in this course, but this is fine. It's just for you to get an idea of what they can be. So ELBs, CloudFront distributions, API gateways, elastic beanstalk environments, S3 websites, so not S3 buckets but S3 websites. When these buckets are enabled as websites, VPC interface endpoints, global accelerator, and Route 53 records in the same hosted zone. One thing that is not there is that you cannot set an alias for an EC2 DNS name. This is something you need to remember. So EC2 DNS names are not something you can have a target that can be the target of an alias record. Okay, just and also to let you to know. So now let's have a look in the console to see how CNAMEs and alias record works. So let's go ahead and create a record, and this one will be of type CNAME. So I'll call this one app.easyaws.rf.ge, and this record type now is not A, it's not quadruple A, it's CNAME, and this the value must be a domain name, and very easy, I already have a domain name available, that's my LB. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy those name of my ALB and paste it here. The idea is that now instead of accessing my ALB through this URL, I want to access the ALB through app.easyaws.rf.gd. Okay, so I'll just create this record, and now app.easyaws.rf.gd has been created. Now let's create an alias record. So I can create a record, and this time it's going to be myalias.easyaws.rf.gd, and the record type is A because my ALB is currently having only IPv4 traffic, and the value of it, so we have to say we have to take the alias right here, and we are going to write route 2, and then we have list of option here. Okay, so we can see a lot of different option, but right now I'm going to be an alias to an application and classic load balancer. We need to choose a region, so is a US East 1 for me, and then we need to choose the load balancer, so I'll choose this load balancer right here. Then automatically we can evaluate the target health as well with a yes, because this is an alias record, so we will click on create this record, and now I have new record right here called my alias easyaws.rf.gd. And the cool thing is that this record is free to query. Okay, so I'm not going to pay any money because this is an alias record. So if I'll search on myalias.easyaws.rf.gd, it is going to perform a few DNS queries, and then again I'll get the same response. Okay, nothing has been changed, but it is working. Okay, so that's perfect. But now, what if you consider the domain apex? So if you wanted to have just easyaws.rf.gd to redirect to this page. So what we are going to do is create a record, and let's go ahead. So we are going to just have nothing in here. Okay, and we are going to have CNAME record pointing to the domain name of my ALB, which is copied from here and pasted here. Okay, so we want to say, hey, easyaws.rf.gd is going to be a CNAME for this value. Now this is not working. Let's try it. It's saying, hey, bad request, the CNAME is not permitted at apex of this zone. So this zone is easyaws.rf.gd, and the apex of the zone is easyaws.rf.gd, and therefore we cannot set up a CNAME at the apex. So the only way we can deal with this issue is instead create alias, and the record is going to be of type A, and the alias is going to point again to an ALB or CLB in the US East 1 region, and the load balancer is going to be the one from before. Now this is going to be accepted because this is an alias record, and this is what the exam may test you on. Okay, so everything is working great. So that's it. We have shown how CNMs and alias records work in AWS. I hope you like it, and I'll see you in the next lecture. So if you found this video helpful, then share this video to your friend. Thank you for watching. Bye and have a nice day.